Hello and welcome to tonight's episode of Double Down on the Irish Inquiry. I'm your host, John Caulfield, and tonight's episode is based upon conspiracy theories, something which is very much in the public discourse at present, and hence the reason we have two admitted conspiracy theorists as our guests. We have Gordon Rochford from Those Conspiracy Guys, a very well-known podcast. You can find him on Acast, and I'm sure he'll speak more about that towards the end of the show. And we have Stephen J. Delaney, who many people within the truth movement in Ireland, I'm sure, are familiar with. Stephen is a nationalist, he is an activist, and he is also an admitted conspiracy theorist. I suppose the rationale and the pretext for tonight's show is, I'm only newly awakened to a lot of the malevolence, I suppose, and the sinister nature of many things within the world over the course of the last 8 or 9 months. So I've been on I suppose, a journey of trying to glean as much understanding as to how many of the elites have operated within society. And it's brought me down various different rabbit holes, as many people discuss, much of which can be substantiated. And yet, we have still seen in general mainstream society a weaponization of the term conspiracy theorist in order to deflect and dilute people's justifiable concerns about much of what's actually ongoing in society at the moment. I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, Gordon or Stephen, I believe the term conspiracy theorist is derived from the Warren Commission after the death of JFK, and it was used to scapegoat or to kind of deflect anybody who had alternative narratives to the mainstream consensus of the day. And that's where it's been weaponized. And I suppose just in the context of the modern day increasing censorship, the war on free speech, incessant propaganda, and the absence of kind of critical and independent thought in vast swaths of society, people ought to be able to express their views and ought to be able, once they can demonstrate some level of substantiated evidence to various different conspiracies, of which there are many in the world. For anybody who doesn't think there are conspiracy theories, it means that there are two people have never colluded together to commit a crime, which is quite naive. So without further ado, I might open up the door and we'll go straight into the deep end. One of the conspiracy theories, which is very salient at the moment, is the Great Reset. The Great Reset, which seemingly is being orchestrated by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab and various other high upper echelon figures within the global governance structures. So, Stephen, if I might start off with yourself,
Sure.
The Great Reset, New World Order, the One World Government, is what we're living through the attempted enslavement of humanity, in your opinion, and have the elites attempted this before?
There's no clear-cut answer to that. I do believe that the people who've put together the Great Reset feel in some way maybe like a messiah complex, where they think that they're saving the world. Some of the people involved have designs on world domination, and all of these people, with all the power that they have, their lack of care and consideration for, let's say, the lowly people of the world, they've never had to experience anything like what we've had to. They've only ever experienced control and, administrative experiences of humankind. That's their role. They've always been above us, moving things around. I do think that there is a malevolent tone to what they're doing right now. And not only do I believe it, but they admit it. They admit what they're doing in certain cases is wrong, such as they've admitted to the level of brainwashing that we see to push us into the Great Reset. They admit that it's hyperbolic language. They admit that they've heightened the fear to push the herd further down the track of where they want us to go. So for that particular question, John, it's hard to answer, because there are people, I think, involved that do think they're doing good.
Yeah, I think so. Gordon, I don't know if you have any kind of insight. I know I went straight into the deep end. The New World Order, I'm sure it's something you've touched upon previously in any of your podcast episodes. What's your general insight as to the chaos, or what's your perception as to you know, what the elite's intentions are at the moment, or what's actually ongoing? Appreciate that's quite a broad question, so take it from wherever way you wish.
You know, John, like I said, it's a cabal of interdimensional child blood drinking lizard pedophiles. Like we know this. There are provable. No, I'm only messing.
Yeah.
You said deep end. Let's fucking go. You know. Yeah. Look, when you're talking about like the Great Reset, you're talking about a global order. A lot of people would poo-poo you and say, how do you organize that many people and keep it a secret? You know, how do so many people work in the same direction for the same malevolent and seemingly secretive, but obviously totally public ends? How do you have, you know, leaders of governments, manipulated elections, constitutional decay across decades, if not centuries, all leading together to this singular moment in time? I'm trying to figure that out for years, and there's always been the next fucking world-destroying event on the horizon since forever. Do you know, a perpetual obelisk of destruction waiting for the world to turn. Like the sun is rising, and we're all getting ready to fucking be shone on by this terrible thing that's about to happen. Propaganda has been going on since, you know, movies have been made, TV shows have been made. You're talking about stuff in the 90s like Armageddon and Independence Day, and they're coming, they're gonna fucking kill us all. Like, this thing is happening for years and years. And the way they science fictionalize it, and the way that they maybe represent it in a doubtable way, they represent it in a kind of a poppycock, like, conspiracy theorist, you know, they're making fun of Alex Jones and shit. Turn the frogs gay, like this. They ridicule it and make it seem so fictionalized that when the real things happen, people are like, no. Like at the moment, they're having this thing where the Simpsons are able to tell the future. Apparently, right? Matt Groening is a time traveler, and you know, the Trump coming down the fucking stairs, and all the things that are like Kamala Harris becoming the vice president. You have Lisa Simpson with her blue, same clothes, like the blue thing with the pearl necklace and all. Like, all of this stuff is all confirmation bias, because people understand there's something not right. There's something not right happening, and it hasn't been happening for like a really long time, as obviously is in the last 2 years. And I don't know about Stephen, but like, I know you make the recipe for a conspiracy theorist is a load of spare time and a little bit of fucking hash or something. Do you know, like, a load of spare time is the main ingredient, and then like a little bit of disconcerted thoughts, a little bit of kind of generalized panic and dread, maybe some substances, alcohol, drugs, something like that, and just mix it all together. And you end up with somebody who's like looking for an answer as to why they feel so shit inside. So of course they're going to look to the outside and go, well, the reason I feel shit inside is because everything's fucked. That's how you make it, you know, right? So like the way that people in America, I think, in the reason it's been associated so much with like nationalism in the leftist view of the toxic nationalism that's creeping across the nation or whatever, right? The reason it's been linked to right-wing views, to more conservative views, to I guess this vilified straw man of a conspiracy theorist, is because since Trump took office in 2016, the forces of, you know, power that are trying to maintain control, that have been working for 100 years to get this shit going since like 1917, and the monster at Jekyll Island, and JP Morgan and the boy sitting around drinking brandy, just smoking cigars, going, so how are we gonna do it, guys? How are we gonna take over the whole world? See, we gotta, you know, a tumult of like so many of these American currencies are you know, bubbling over, and boom bust economies are happening in 2-3 year cycles, and all of these different types of interbank notes, and how all this shit is working. They're like, no, we got to control this. People are able to earn their own money, and they're able to own their own buildings, own their own land. How are we going to stop it? And there's a fucking plan put together, and that shit is starting to bear fruit now. You can see it with hyperinflation, the Federal Reserve printing 35 or 40, nearly 40% of all money existing on the planet now was printed in the last 18 months. Like, these things are coming to an end in a system that has a finite shelf life.
Yeah.
And the people
the fiat
that
system,
are
Gordon, is it?
the what?
The fiat system.
Fiat currency system.
Yeah.
And the people that are noticing this thing happening are saying, well, that's not a great thing. And the people that are supporting that system seem to have some political ideology, and the people who say, well, this isn't great, happen to have fallen into the opposite ideology because they're, libertarians, they're, anti big government, they're anti like totalitarian control, right? And it seems that like in the 60s, you were a conspiracy theorist if you thought that the government, which was, I mean, JFK was a Democrat. Do you know what I'm saying? Like these guys, liberals or people who were of liberal mindset in the classic liberal sense were always the conspiracy theorists. Hey man, the government has a car that runs on water, man. These guys.
That was a left idea.
Always a leftist idea. Always a liberal kind of freedom and this kind of. And then all of a sudden, something turned. A tide turned. Pajama bottoms were exchanged in the cabin at summer camp, and then you're going home with the wrong jammies. Like people are like, "What the fuck am I? What am I wearing?" And all of a sudden, all these conspiracy theorists are now khaki wearing, looking torch carrying, gun toting, looking Trump loving, like Republican conservatives. And it's been slurred like you're a nationalist, you're a white supremacist, you're this. All the awful things that you could be in the world are now associated with questioning the narrative of a big government operation. So when you have something like the Great Reset comes in and says, right, we're going to take over food production. We're going to give everybody UBI. We're going to control everything. We're going to implement learned helplessness to a populace who they're saying you don't know yourself well enough to run your own life. Sure, look at the fucking state of you. Let us do it. Let us do it for you because you're a fucking gobshite. And we'll make it all better. And they're like, oh yeah, mommy, mind me, mommy. And then you fucking get money for free, but you have to do what you're told. You get all your drugs for free, but you have to do what you're told. You have to vote the right way. You get all your food for free. You have to do what you're fucking told. It's like this totalitarian Trotskyite communism controlling everybody's movements. You can't go into a building. You can't go into a fucking shop. You're not allowed to buy it. You're not allowed, trade, buy and sell, own a business, have a fucking, go into a cinema, sit down, because this oppressive regime of control comes with great benefits, but you have to give up your freedoms for it. And as Ben Franklin said, somebody who's willing to give up their freedom for security deserves neither.
Yeah.
Do you know?
And to even
that's a broad answer to a broad question here, John.
Absolutely, and I expected nothing less. I think, and as you say, there has been conspiracies. You alluded to many of which that have been spoken about, and people in especially college rooms and whatnot have kind of ruminated on for hours upon you may say so, have ruminated upon for hours upon end. But it does appear as though that there is an increasing, as I alluded at the start, there's an increasing weaponization of the term because of the elite structures of society. Now, this is only my perception of it. By all means, correct me or add more into it if you wish, by Stephen or Gordon. They've ratcheted up the level of control and totalitarian ideology within society to the point at which it's almost 1984-esque. Free thought, critical thought is very much... It's slandered, it's ridiculed, it's
if I could add to that, John.
Yeah, by all means.
I think that's one part of the axis of where, like, how conspiracy theorists operate. So, like, you have conspiracy theorists, like Gordon said, who, well, nearly all conspiracy theorists probably traditionally would have come from a background of too much time on their hands, smoking weed, whatever. But conspiracy theory is an amalgamation of critical thinking, skepticism. These are things that people should have within their psyche. They are self-defense mechanisms. So, like, a conspiracy theorist back in the 80s would have been an extreme person. But modern times, simply questioning things like, why do I need this pass to walk into a shop? Right? That's not I don't think that's a conspiracy theorist. I'm just going to say that now. That's skepticism. So I think there are skeptical people now, more so, and they're being lumped in with people like myself who are real conspiracy theorists. And I don't think they belong in the same negative connotations that I would be labeled with rightfully. because I go into mad conspiracies. I delve into things. Does that make sense? Like there
Well,
is about 80% of the population right now being slammed for just being skeptical and questioning things. Their rights are being stripped away in front of them. They don't like it, and they're being called conspiracy theorists. So that there is that access of it as well. Whereas, yes, a conspiracy theorist will be, but a skeptical human being is not someone who would traditionally sit down and smoke weed. A skeptical human being is someone who checks their fucking change after they walk out of a shop. That there's a difference, you know.
Yeah.
In saying that, right, there's this concept called the Overton window, right, and it's basically it's like this sociological concept by his name's Overton anyway. I can't remember his first name. Joseph Overton.
John mentioned this before to me, but go on.
Yeah, right. And it's basically like a sliding scale of the acceptable speech in society, and it's a creeping lessening of the
wrong speak.
No, it's a creeping lessening of the tolerance towards certain public opinions, right? And it's based on the movement of it is based on like creeping government policy. So when take I don't know, something out of the air, the global coronavirus pandemic, right? Let's say, right. For example, in March you were to wear a mask, or in February when it was like, whoa, people are falling down in China on Facebook videos, right? There was no mask, no